Today's daf is Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Samach Gimel 63, and we're going to begin on the last word of Daf Samach Beis, Amud Beis, Gufa. So Gemara begins over here, Gufa. Gufa. Now we learned before. We're going to Daf Samach Gimel, Amud Aleph. Gufa, we learned. Here we go. Again. Gufa, we learned. Amar Rabami said, Zibach, if someone slaughters for an avodah zarah, v'kita, or brings incense to and brings incense to avodah zarah, v'nisach, or he poured wine on avodah zarah, on an idol, behelam echad, he with one helam, with one not knowing. In other words, he knew it was avodah zarah, but he didn't know that you're not allowed to do these type of services to the avodah zarah, even if it's not the normal way. So he did a couple, 1, 2, 3. Since he did it by mistake, he's only chayav one korban chatas, because Rabami is of the opinion that that the Torah wrote loy shishtachve, don't bow. So that teaches you that that's by bowing, there's only separate thing. You're not chayav skila if you bow to an avodah zarah. But the others, the Torah is teaching you that you would be chayav skila, but if you do it all at one shot by mistake, you only chayav one korban chatas. You're only liable for one korban chatas. As we mentioned yesterday, if you do on Shabbos, you know something is also to do on. If you know it's Shabbos and you did a few malachas by mistake, you chayav for each one of them a separate korban. But Rabami is of the opinion that avodah zarah is different. Even if you do a couple of malachas, a couple of avodah services to the avodah zarah, by mistake, you only chayav one korban chatas. Amar Abaye, my tamid Rabami. So Abaye said, what is the reason of Rabami? Amakra, the pasuk says, loy sa'avdein. Don't serve the idols with a mem, and don't serve them. Hakasav asan kulan avodah achas. The Torah made them all at one avodah. In other words, that it's all considered as if you did one error, even though it seems like you did many errors of slaughtering and keter and incense and libations to the idol. Still, the Torah considers as if you did one avera, and therefore you chayav only one korban chatas. Says the Gemara, Umi Omer Abaya Hachi. Does Abaya agree with the statement of Rab Ami that you only chayav one korban chatas? Or Abaya said, Shlolish hashtachavois b'avodah zarah lamali. The Torah tells you 3 times, don't bow to an avodah zarah. And Abai explained, first of all, it says Lishishtachave lehem in the Aseres Adibris. It says Lishishtachave le'el acher, and it also says Lishishtachave le'el lehem in the don't bow to their gods. So in the Aseres Adibris twice, and then it says also in Parshas Mishpatim. So therefore, the question is, why did the Torah write 3 times not to bow to an avodah zarah? So it teaches you 3 things. Achas l'kedarka, you're not allowed to bow to an avodah zarah if that's the manner of serving the avodah zarah. Achas shloy gedarka, and you're not allowed to one l'shishtachava teaches you're not allowed to bow to an avodah zarah. You're not allowed to bow to an avodah zarah, even if it's not the one is not to bow, even if it's not the normal manner to serve this idol. And one teaches you that if you do all the services to an avodah zarah at one time, we divide them into categories, and therefore you're going to chayav a korban chatas for each one. So clearly you see that Abaya disagrees with Rabbi Ami. So how does Abaya go ahead and now explain what the reason of Rabbi Ami's opinion is? Answers the Gemara. Sometimes you find that in an Amoraim, the dvar of the Rabbi Ami kamalei v'lei loisvir lei. He was just explaining Rabbi Ami's source for his opinion, but v'lei Rabbi himself loisvir lei would not hold of what Rabbi Ami said. So that happens when that happens often in the Gemara, where one Amoira will explain the reason of another Amoira. Says the Gemara, Gufa, we learned before, Amar Abai said, Sholish ishtachavois b'avodah zarah lama. Achas l'kedarka, achas shloy kedarka, v'achas l'chalek. What we learned before, that there's 3 times it says to bow. So one of them teaches you that you're not allowed to serve the idol the way it's normally served. Says the Gemara, Me'echa yavdo hagoyim me'ele nafka. There's a pasuk, as you can see on your screen. Hisham lecha achasham pinagum and tidrosh lehem echa yavdo hagoyim that you're not supposed to serve an idol the way it's normally served, and you're trying to follow that. So that I know from a different pasuk. So why do I need one hishtachava to teach me you're not allowed to serve an idol, and you're not allowed to bow to an idol if that's the normal way to serve that? I learned that concept from another pasuk called Eichel Yavdu Hagoyim Be'ela. So the Gemara says, Ella, we need the three times it says hishtachava. And I'm going to repeat. It says hishtachava, hishtachulahem, hishtachava le'elacher, and it says also in the Sefer Dibros, le'hishtachava lehem. So what do we need that for? So achas, one teaches you achas kedarka v'shloy ledarka. It's this, you're serving the idol in a similar way, but that's not the normal way. In other words, it's an idol that you generally show honor to that idol. And therefore, you're showing honor to the idol by bowing to it, even though that's not the normal way to serve that idol. That is considered you're doing something wrong for the idol. Okay, then we need one teaching, so that's usher, and then we need va'achas l'shoy kedarka if it's totally not the normal way to serve that idol. For example, just the opposite. Most of the time, to serve that idol, you have to do something degrade yourself to the idol. For example, defecate yourself for the Baal Pa'ar. So if you bow to that kind of an idol, you still even though you're doing something of honor to that idol, you're still liable. And one is to teach you, like Rabbi says, that you divide all of the services that you do in one shot to different categories, and you have a korban chatas for each. Then we learned in the Mishnah, Hamakabel ola belekai, be'elahai, hoime eliater. Someone goes to an idol and says, "You are my God." So obviously he's accepting the God, and therefore he's chayiv the death penalty. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Babavu, Amar Rav, Kevin Sha'amar Loi Eli Ato Chai. When you assume that this is my God, so then you're liable for the death penalty. Lemai. So what is a Rav Nachman trying to teach you? If Rav Nachman's teaching, you're going to be liable for the death penalty if you do that on purpose. You go to an idol and say, "Oh, I accept you as my God." Masnisini. That's exactly what the Mishnah is telling you. El lekarbin. Nachman's telling you that you're chayiv a korban, that if you do it by accident, by mistake, you're chayiv a korban for that sin. V'afilu Rabbanan, would everybody agree to that statement? Would the Rabbanan agree to that statement? Because the fact that you're saying that this is my God, you're really not performing an action. And we know that in order to be mechayiv, let's say a korban chatas, you have to perform something that requires an action. For example, if you're to be mechayiv a korban chatas for violating Shabbos, you would need to do an action like cook or something on Shabbos. But here you're just saying eliata. So, and yet Rav Nachman said you're chayiv a korban chatas. Would everybody agree to that? Would the Rabbanan agree to that? Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa, eino chayiv aladova sheyesh ben ma'isa. You're not held liable only if you do an action. Going zibuach, if you slaughter, v'kitur, or nisach, v'shtachavo, you bow to the idol. V'amer Rav Shlokish said, now even bowing to the idol, if you do it by mistake, you chayiv a korban chatas. Now, really, bowing is not so much of an action; it's just like nodding your head, and therefore, is that considered an action? To require you to get a korban chatas. Rav Shlokish, man tanei shtachava, who holds that just bowing enough is considered an action to mechayiv a korban chatas. Rabbi Kivi, the Amma loy be'ina ma'isa. You don't need a real action, just a little bit of an action. So Rabbi Kiva would hold that bowing, you get a korban chatas. If you say Eli Ato, you get a korban chatas. But Michlal, the Rabbanan Savri be'ina ma'isa. But according to Rabbanan, you would not be required. Rabbanan would disagree with this brayso, and they would hold that in order for you to get to be liable for a korban chatas, you have to do an action, something that is an action, and then you get the korban chatas. So Rav Nachman seems to go and align himself with the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. And says the Gemara, yes. Ki kama Rav Nachman, who said the name of Rav, he's also going Rabbi Kiva kama. So he's telling you that Rabbi Kiva would, according to Rabbi Kiva, Eli Ata would be enough to require you to get a korban chatas. Said the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva, Pshita, Hainu Megadiv. Rabbi Kiva, of course, holds that you get a korban chatas, because Rabbi Kiva says that if someone chas v'shalom curses the Eibishter, and again, you're not doing any action, you're cursing, Rabbi Kiva says you do it by accident, you chayiv a korban chatas. So if you're going to say Eli Ato, you're going to do worship our idol by saying this is my God, According to Rabbi Kiva, you should get a korban chatas. So that's no novel chiddush. So the Gemara says, "My would say, I would have thought." Ad kan lo kam Rab Kiva korban. Rab Kiva would have only held you liable for a korban el b'megadif. Only by if you curse God by mistake, then you're liable for a korban. Diksiv bei chorus, because it says next to that if you do it on purpose, you chayiv chorus by megadif. So therefore, right next to that parsha, it talks about korban chatas. So I get it that by megadif, if you do it by accident, you would get a korban chatas. Aval hocha, by serving an idol. The loikse be karis doesn't say karis right next to the korban chatas. A maloi, I might think that you don't, if you do an action, if you do say eli ato to a god idol, I might think even according to Rabbi Kiva, you wouldn't be mechayev a korban chatas. Kamash malam the takushe itakish. It's the juxtaposed the two services to an idol next to each other. Vayishtachu vayizbechu loy vayomru. The pasuk says that they, by the eagle, they bowed, slaughtered, and they said, "This is our God." So we juxtapose, just like by slaughtering by mistake, by slaughtering by mistake. Just like by slaughtering by mistake, you're going to get you're going to get the korban chatas. So also, if you say Eila Lehech Yisrael, you'll also be liable for a korban chatas. So now the Gemara just says something about the egel. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, "Izmalu vav shebalucho nischayvu sheneim shal Yisrael kloya." Had the Yid not said when they said Eila Elehecha Yisrael ashehelucha, that brought you up, so to Mitzrayim. So basically, the Yidden was saying that they agreed that God is God, but He had assistance in order to bring the Jews out of Mitzrayim. And if the Jews, so therefore, they didn't totally abandon God during the Egel. They actually said that God had a partner to bring us out of Mitzrayim. So had they totally abandoned God, then they would have, then God would have totally destroyed the Jewish people. So we see that there's one thing to abandon God. That's bad, but not as bad as avodah zarah. It's called shituf. You say that God has a partner. So saying that God has a partner is less of an avera. So the Gemara says, kitanoi, that not everybody agrees to that. Others say, this Acherim is another name for a mayor. He said, had the Jews not made it a light form of avodah zarah by the egel, by saying it was God had a partner, so then they would have totally been destroyed. But Amalai Reb Shimon ben Yochai says that's just as bad as an Aveira as abandoning God. Just saying that God has a partner is just as bad. If someone says that God has a partner, Nekam in Oilam, he should be uprooted from the world. Shnema, the Torah tells you, Bilti Lashem Levadai, that it's only God alone, nobody else. So you're not allowed to even say that God has a partner, for sure not. And it's just as bad as a sin. So Talmud Hashalucha. So why did the Jews say this is the God that brought us? That these are the gods that brought us from Mitzrayim. So that doesn't mean they were serving one God, but She'ivu Elohus Arba. They became to in such a low level, the Jews, that they didn't just want the Egel to be a God. They were ready to take anything to be a God. They wanted many different types of God. Then the Mishnah says, if you hug an idol, you kiss, you clean an idol, you spray it with water, you're held liable. Kiyasa Rabdimi Amar Rabbi Lazar says, Al kulam loiki, you get malchus if you do all these things on purpose. Chutz ma'anoidi b'shmoi v'amakayim b'shmoi. If you make a neder in the name of the idol, or you show respect by making a shvua. Makayim means you make a shvua in the name of the idol. You don't get a malchus. So Gemara wants to understand that statement of Rabdimi, who said in the name of Rab Lazar. Maishna, why is it if you make a neder or a shvu in the name of the idol, you don't get malchus? Because it's a lav with no action, and we know a lav that you don't do any action, you don't get the punishment of malchus. Haninami, this idea of hugging an idol and kissing an idol, lav shebecholos, ve'ein loy lav shebecholos. it's a law that includes many different types of services, because the Torah tells you al tifnu el ho'elilim. So don't pay attention to the idols. So this includes don't hug an idol, don't kiss an idol. So it's a law that includes many different topics, and we have a rule that when one law includes many different concepts, you don't get malchus on the lav. Only if it's a specific lav. Let's say the Torah tells you don't eat a nevela, so that's a specific. Don't eat a dead animal. But here it's a lav that includes many different ideas, so you don't get malchus in that kind of a lav. The Tanya we learned in a brisa. The part that we're going to try to show that sometimes there's a law that includes many different concepts. The Torah tells you loy soichlu al hadam, don't eat while there's blood. So what does that mean? The Tanya, so we're going to say that there's many different ideas learned from that pasuk, and because there's so many different ideas learned from that pasuk, you're not going to get malchus on that law. The Tanya we learned in the brisa. If you eat an animal after you slaughter it, before the soul left the animal, you start eating from it. Another meaning of this, it's a halach in kachim. You're not allowed to eat from the meat of the kachim if you didn't spray the mizbeach. He learns from that if Bezdin killed somebody, the family doesn't get that first meal. They don't really sit avelus. The Tanya don't eat on the don't they should not be eating if the person that was that died was somebody that was killed by Bezdin, because we really want them to have kapara. So we don't show respect to the family. They don't shiva, whatever. There's a Sanhedrin that's about to kill somebody. They should be fasting that day. Talmud Bavli they are not allowed to eat while they're killing somebody. The Torah tells you that a ben Saira Moira should not eat because it might lead to his death. So the Torah tells you all these different lavim come from this concept of lo soichlu al adam. Don't eat on the blood. The Amar of al kulam, and all these concepts, you're not going to get malchus mishum dahava lav shebeklolis, because it's a lav that includes many different concepts, and therefore you don't get malchus in that kind of lav. So therefore the question is, why would you get malchus if you hug or kiss or clean an idol? Ella ki also Ravin Amar Ablazim, and Ravin came, he said in the name of Laza, Akulan ain't like you don't get malchus for anything. Chutz, you don't get malchus for anything. Chutz ben anoid b'shmoy ben kaim b'shmoy. If you make a neder in the idol's name, or you make a shvu in the idol's name, you're not going to get malchus. You're going to get malchus. Now, so the Gemara is going to ask, wait a second, why if you hug an idol you don't get malchus? To have a lav shebeklolis, because it's a lav that includes many concepts. Harinami, you shouldn't get malchus for making a neder or shvu in the name of the idol. Lav shem b'maisininu, it's a lav that has no action. You don't get malchus for doing a lav that has no actions. And said Gemara, yes, but there is an opinion that holds that even if it's a lav she'ein by ma'isa, you would get malchus. How do you know? Hahu Rabbi Yehuda, the amal lav she'ein by ma'isa loikan all the time. We learned in the brisa that you're not to leave over from the carbon pesach till the morning. Bar kosav litin asay achaloisase, that you have a positive commandment after violating a negative command. If you left over the carbon pesach till the morning, you have to burn it. Laima she'ein loikin all of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't get malchus because on this lav, because you left over, and now the Torah requires you to do a positive commandment and burn the meat. Rabbi Yaakov says the reason why you don't get malchus for noiser leaving over from the carbon pesach is loimin Hashem, who said that's not the reason. Because by leaving over from the carbon pesach, he didn't do any action, so that's the reason why you don't get malchus. But Rabbi Yehuda says the reason why you don't get malchus by noisar, by leaving over from the carbon pesach, is because there's a positive commandment following that negative commandment, like the positive commandment that follows thou shalt not steal. But if you do steal, you should return it. So that you don't get malchus for that. But Rabbi Yaakov says it's leaving over meat is the lav shem b'maisa, and that's the reason why you don't get malchus. So Mechlal, from here you can say Rabbi Yehuda Sava, Rabbi Yehuda holds like an olive, you do get malchus for a lav she'ein by Maisa. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you do get malchus for a lav she'ein by Maisa, and therefore, if you hug and kiss and do all these things to an idol, you don't get malchus because that's a lav shebachlolis. That's a lav that includes many concepts, so there is no malchus. But Ravin said that according to one opinion, if you swear or you make a neder invoking the name of the idol, then the god, so then you would get malchus, even though it's a lav shem by ma'aser, because all you're doing is saying something from your mouth. That's not an action. And Rabbi Yehuda holds lav shem by ma'aser like an olav. Now the Gemara continues. You violated a negative commandment. What is the negative commandment? How do you know you're not allowed to make a neder or shvu in the name of the strange god, the Tanya, the Shem Elihim Acherim Lo Yisaskiru. The Torah tells you don't mention the names of other gods. The person shouldn't say to his friend, Shmor li b'tzad avodah zarah planis. Wait for me at next to this avodah zarah. You mentioned avodah zarah's name. You're not allowed to let that name come out. That's like a curse word. You're not allowed to let it come out of your mouth. Lo yisham al picha, it should not be heard through your mouth. Shlo yida b'shmoi v'leikam b'shmoi. You're not allowed to make a neder or a shvua in the name of the idol. V'lo yigram lachem shidu b'shmoi. You're not allowed to cause other people to make a neder. You're not allowed to make, let's say, other people to make who believe in that idol to make a neder in that name of yikayim b'shmoi or make a shvua in the name of that idol. Dover acha, another interpretation of lo yisham al picha. Don't make idols be heard through your mouth, azar lemesis umediach, to someone who incites or subverts, incites one person to do avodah zarah. Madiach means you subvert an entire city to do an avodah zarah. That is lo yisham al picha. Says the Gemara, mesis behedik sibei v'chol yishmu v'yiro. When someone incites somebody to do an avodah zarah, the Torah gives you another lav from somewhere else. Says that pasuk v'chol Yisrael yishma v'yiro. So I don't need this pasuk of lo yisham al picha. So what is lo yisham al picha talking about? Ella azar l'madiyah. That one is not allowed to subvert an entire city to do avodah zarah, and that makes an iran dirachas. So that's the law for that. What does that mean? We explain the brisa. You're not allowed to cause others to make a neder in the idol's name or make a shvu in the idol's name. This is a support for what the father of Shmuel said. The father of Shmuel said, you're not allowed to have a partner with a guy, because you know how partners, they get into a fight with each other, and one partner, the Jewish partner, is going to ask the Goyish partner to take an oath, and that oath is he's going to invoke the name of his idol. Shema Yischayev Leishua. Maybe the guy is going to be obligated to take an oath to prove his point. And the Jew is causing the Nishba Ba'avei Zarah. He's going to cause the guy to swear in the name of his idol. The Torah says, Lo yisham al picha, it should not be heard against your mouth. It should not be heard from your mouth. Ki asa Ula, when Ula came from Eretz Yisrael, bas b'Kalmanoi. He slept in the city called Kalmanoi. Now, Kalmanoi, the city was named he slept in a hotel in this place called Kal Nevoy. Nevoy is an avodah zarah, and it's and they call the city Kal Nevoy, like Saint Mary they call Satmar. So they made this name. Really, the avodah zarah is named Nevoy, but they called it Kal Nevoy, the light Nevoy. But anyway, he slept over in that city. Amalei Rava. Rava, when he met Ula, Heicha Basmar, where did you sleep last night? Amalei, he said, Bekal Nevoy, in the city Kal Nevoy. Amalei, so Rava said to Ula, you're not supposed to mention another god, like we do. Instead of saying we say Yashka instead of the name. So you're not supposed to mention that name. So how are you mentioning Kal Nevoy? Amalei, so Ula said, Rabbi Yochanan said that Kol avodah zarah haksuva b'Torah. If the Torah calls and mention any avodah zarah that's mentioned in the Torah, let's say Bal Pa'or, so that's mentioned in the Torah, you're allowed to say it. Mutal haskeshmal. So ha'heichiksuva. Where does the Torah? Where do you find the Tanakh? The name Bal Kal Nevoy, the ksiv, because the pasuk says Kora Bal Benz Kairos Nevoy, and Nevoy stoops. So we see that the Nevoy avodah zarah is mentioned in Tanakh. If it's not written in Tanakh, you're not allowed to mention it. But Sharshi says, Ra'achas meruba kashal shi kimegadoin l'shiloi shein shteit vila shnei sibugim harezes of gomer. It's a concept in Mishnah Zav, but we use as a reference point that it's from migadoin to shiloi. The amount of time it takes to walk from gadoin, which is an avodah zarah, to shiloi. So we see that the Mishnayos mention avodah zarah, although the word God is not mentioned in the Torah. So how did the Mishnayos mention God if it's not mentioned in the Torah? You're not allowed to mention avodah zarah's name. Amar Ravina explained, God nami michtav ksivi. If you learn Tanakh, God is also written in the Torah. The ksiv harichim, those that prepare a meal, God shulchan, they prepare a meal for a table for the avodah zarah of God. Rav Nachman says, to make a mock of something, any type of comedy is asur. If you're making fun of and you're mocking avodah zarah, that's permitted. The pasuk does mock avodah zarah. Koros Baal, Koros Navai. Karu Yachtov Lo Yachlu Malet Basa. The pasuk is saying that they were so bent over, this avodah zarah is bent over and stooped over, as if they have to unload, as if they're having a constipation and they cannot defecate. So even the pasuk makes fun of the avodah zarah. Uksiv, the pasuk says, Dibru le'eglas beis oven yugurin shechayin shaimrem ki aval olav amoy uchmarav olav yagilu al kavoide ki golam memenu. The inhabitants, we're going to read it over here, the inhabitants of Samaria shall be in dread when Sancheriv was come, for the calves of Beit Oven, for its people shall mourn over it, and its priests shall tremble for its glory, because it has departed from. When Sancheriv is going to take those 10 tribes and get rid of them because they're doing avodah zarah, their pride has left them. What is kavoidai? Al tikre kavoidai el kveidai, the load that again these avodah zarahs that they served looked like they that they had to go. They're fat idols that looked like they had to go to the bathroom at any moment, and they couldn't get it all out. So therefore, even the Tanakh makes fun of the idols. Amma Rabbi Yitzchak, and that's just a concept. The more you make fun of it, the more or less people will follow it. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, my diksiv, v'atem yosifu lachtoi v'yaisel lehem aseichel mikaspem kisvunum atzeibem. What does that mean? They continued to sin, and they made silver images, kitvunam, according to their understanding, my kisvunum atzeibem, whenever they're sad. Everybody at that time had a little idol in his pocket. Like a silver idol you put in your pocket. When you remember that you need it, you would take it out from your pocket, you would hug it, and you would kiss it whenever you're in a bad mood. So that's how they use their idols in those days. What is the meaning of this pasuk? Adam agolim yishgal, and those that slaughter a human being, kill a human being, the calf, the idol will kiss you. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak devei Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Yitzchak explained from Rabbi Ami's school. At that time, to that Shahaya Kaimrim, the priests for the idols, Noisnim Eineim Babalimam. They saw a wealthy guy, and who's on the fences, and he's willing to do this. So what they did was they tricked the wealthy guy to kill himself. How do they trick a wealthy guy to kill himself? First, Umarivim Resagom, they would starve the calves, the baby cows, Voisim Dmus Atsebim, and then they would make a picture of the wealthy guy, Umabidim Mitzad Avusein, and put it right next to the troughs where the calves would eat. Umatzian Asin Lechutz, and then they would take these calves outside to meet the actual individual, the wealthy guy. In other words, when the calf was starving, it would go to its trough and it would feed and look at a picture of the wealthy guy. Then one day, the priests brought the wealthy guy to the calves. Kevin Shiro, since the calves would see the wealthy guy, and they would snuggle up with the wealthy guy. So I'm like the priests for the idols would say, the little calf likes you. Yovav Yizbach Hatzmalai. Go slaughter yourself for him, and you'll have a tremendous afterlife. And the wealthy guy did it. And who inherited all his money? The priests. So that's what it's seeing. Zoivchei Adam, those that slaughter a human being, they slaughter themselves because of they were kissed by a calf. Agolam Yishakun. Amarava, so Rava said, "Hi Zoivchei Adam Agolam Yishakun." That's not the right. If that was the meaning of the pasuk, then the pasuk should say first Agolam Yishakun. The calf would kiss him first, Lizbayach Adam, in order for causing him to slaughter himself. So it seems that the pasuk reverses the order of what actually happened. First, they killed themselves, and then the calf kissed them. Ella Amar Rava explains. Kol hazaveach is that the pasuk is teaching you something else. Kol hazaveach is b'noi l'avodah zarah. Anybody who slaughters his animal to avodah zarah, Amar loy, darin gadol hikriv loy, yava v'yishak loy. They would tell him, "Oh, you did such a great thing for the idol. You slaughtered your own son for the sake of the idol. Could come and kiss the idol." Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Now the Gemara just describes, and we'll end in a minute. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, how did the idols look at that time? The Anshe Bavel Asu Sukkos Benois Manihu Tarnagal. So they had an idol that was like a chicken. The Anshe Kus Asu Snargal Manihu Tarnagal. They made an idol like a hen. The Anshe Chamas also as Hashima. Manihu, what was their idol? The Anshe Chamas Barcha Karcha, a bald billy goat. Va'avim also as nifcham as tartak, manihu, they made an idol of kelev v'chamor, that was a dog and a donkey. I guess they were serving animals and birds. V'asvardim sarfinis b'neihem b'eish, they would burn their children in fire to al darmach ma'al melech elehei savram, to the al melech and al melech. These are idols. Ma'ninu hapared v'hapsus, an idol that was in the shape of a mule, and an idol that was the shape of a horse. So Andar Melech refers to a mule. Why is an Andar Melech referring to a mule? The Adel Leilamara Betina, because it honors its master carrying all the heavy loads. Andar Melech was like something that carried heavy loads. A mule carries heavy loads. So they made an idol looking like a mule. Van Melech, and Melech refers to a horse. That was an idol in the shape of a horse, because it answers the call of its master. I guess during war or whenever you needed to go from place to place, you used the horse. So the horse was considered an idol. Now, and the Gemara concludes, Chizkiyahu, the great Chizkiyahu, the tzaddik Chizkiyahu, he had a father. His father, I think his father's name was Achaz, and his father, who was an idol worshiper, wanted to send Chizkiyahu through the fire. Chizkiyahu Melchi Yehuda Bikesh Aviv Lasos like Cain. His father wanted to burn him alive. That was how you serve the idols, and his father was addicted to these idols and was going to burn his own son. Ella shesachatoi imay salamandra. His mother, before he was sent through the fire to be burned, she covered his body with the salamander, and that made him the oil. I guess this type of oil made him fireproof. Rashi concludes, Chaya ketana sheyotzi mitana. There's a small live animal, I don't know, live being that comes out of a oven that was burning for 7 years straight. V'hasach midama, if you anoint yourself from the blood of this animal, it makes you fireproof. The fire cannot take a hold of you. So if you take the blood of this animal that's created by a fire that was burning in an oven for 7 years, and you open it up and take from the animal and smear the blood all over you, the fire will not burn you. So we see how addicted they were to at the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. The 10 tribes and the 2 tribes were all addicted to these type of idols, and we see some of that today with, unfortunately, certain types of addictions that people have. This is also what it was, crazy things that people did, and the way to get around it is, Gemara says, you can make mockery of the whole thing, and that puts it in people's minds not to do these things. Okay, we continue tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem.